Hey everyone, so we've come to Phantasy Star III, and this is probably the really weird one in the series. So you had the first game, the second one was a relatively direct sequel taking place 1,000 years later. This one, I'm not 100% sure how it fits in, and I'll get into a couple of my theories later, but this is just kind of a weird one. Mostly because it was done by another team, so you're going to have a different art style and different ideas for how the game is going to be played. And some of it's kind of hit or miss with me. It was a fun game, don't get me wrong, but it was way easier than the first two. So our story takes place over 3 different generations of heroes. You start out as Reese, and then you can branch off depending on who you want to marry, and then it branches off again depending on who you want to marry, giving you a possibility of 4 different endings, which are all, from what I've heard, relatively the same. Anyway, it does give a little bit of replay value because the end characters that you can play as are a little bit different, but as far as I've seen, the endings are pretty much the same. There's not really a whole lot of variation. So the text crawl is explaining that 400 years after the planet of Palm was destroyed by Dark Force, you and a group of other, I'm guessing colonists, escaped from the planet. There are a total of 400 ships. We only hear about one of them. Somehow Dark Force got on some of the ships, we're told. We're not really sure how many, but whatever. It's fine for what it is, and it does kind of, lead to some other things that they could get into. So the first thing I want to mention is the inventory system. It is better, but it's still pretty awful. All of your key items and equipment are in the inventory, and each character has their own, but it's not very big. You can hold a total of 15 items. Most of this I found was just me holding on to different healing items since they were way more useful than any healing spell in the game. It got a little annoying. So here's the world map, which just, I don't even understand what the hell is going on. So the entire planet is divided into these 7 areas, and you've got different connecting tunnels and also some teleportation through the temples to get to the different spots. One thing I hate about the map is it doesn't show where really any of the towns are. I don't get it. You don't see towns, you don't see any real landmarks like caves or the temples or the airports or the docks. You're just given this, and you kind of have to guess on where you have to go. This is one of the things I hate. Also, we have the cutscenes here, and my god, they're just a step back from what they were in the first game and in the second game as well. I'm not really sure what happened with these. I know the series does go more comic book style, and I think they could have done a lot more. Even as the graphics are improved on this one, I think they probably could have put more into these little cutscenes in each different marriages. Even when you get to the end, that cutscene is way better than the ones that are in game. Now here's one thing that was a huge improvement from the second, and that is the battle scenes. You can see you're no longer fighting on a weird grid in the middle of nothing, and lots of the sprites are really big. Even the backgrounds are pretty well done. If you're fighting on the surface, you get some nice parallax scrolling in the background, which is really, really nice. One thing that they took a step back on was the battle animations for the different enemies. They're fairly minimalistic. While the enemies are incredibly creative and sometimes bizarre beyond any real comprehension, they didn't do a great job of actually animating. In the first game, you saw quite a bit of movement from the enemies, even though they really stuck to just one sprite on the screen. In the second game, you didn't really see a whole lot of animation, but it was still pretty good. and you did see your characters move. Here, you don't get any of that. It's really not a big deal if you cast a spell, you don't really see anything, and even attacking, it's pretty minimal. Now we come to the boss fights, and with the exception of the last one, they're all pretty much the same. You have your boss character who's got a big sprite who's in the background, and then you face 6 little enemies in the foreground. This really didn't change a whole lot. I'm not sure why, but it was just something very weird, where all the boss fights seem just pretty basic, at least from going into these and then going on to the very end. Dark Force was really the only battle that honestly made me feel like I was doing something. When you get to the Dark Force, you have to fight his 2 hands and then his head. He's the one that was probably the biggest pain in the butt, but that's mostly because he's the big bad guy in the game. This one actually required some strategy. I had to use some healing spells, and it was just a much longer fight, seeing how he has about 8,000 hit points. The other ones, I really wish they could have done more. So, you end up killing off Dark Force, you yell out a couple of weird power words, destroy the floating evil city, and thankfully you end up veering your spaceship away from the sun. Which, by the way, you were veering into the sun. And you find out everything in the game was your fault. Literally everything that happens in this game is the fault of all of your characters. If none of you went off and tried to do anything in this game, Dark Force wouldn't have come back, he would not have convinced you to screw up, and you would not have steered the frickin' ship into the sun. So basically, everything is your fault. If you had just done nothing in the game, everything would have been fine. So yeah, the game does leave the door open for more sequels. They don't do anything with it in Phantasy Star IV, and we'll get to that once I get to that game. But I could see how you could do more stories off of this, because they sent out 400 ships, we only get the story about one of those ships. And at the end of it, it does show it landing on another planet, or at least going towards another planet. So it could have been a story about the next system, which really raised a lot of questions with why don't these people just frickin' leave the system if they know that this thing called Dark Force, or sometimes Dark Falls, comes back every 1,000 years. Why don't they just leave after they defeat it? Like, they beat the thing, and then they should just immediately get on their spaceships and leave, but they never frickin' do, for reasons, I guess. Yeah, at first I thought that this was taking place alongside Phantasy Star II, where you would have sort of like a parallel story, and it was going to end with the planet being destroyed. That would have made sense to me, but instead we're on a spaceship that was sent off by the people of Palm before the planet explodes, and they say it's not done by a satellite, it's done by Dark Force, which doesn't make any sense in the context of Phantasy Star II, so it kind of feels like this is in an alternate universe, which confuses the hell out of me, because that's the only way I could think that this could possibly fit in. Even though in 4 they totally retcon everything, so everything in 3 and a lot of the stuff in 2 just never freaking happened. So anyway guys, that's the game. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and have a great day everyone.